Welcome to this Pearson Edexcel event. AS and A-Level Economics B, new to Edexcel, has been designed to provide valuable information to help teachers who are thinking of switching to Pearson Edexcel. It is also suitable for newly qualified teachers starting to teach the AS and A-Level Economics B specification, or for teachers wanting a refresher. The aims and objectives for this event are to look at an overview of the specification, explore themes 1, 2, 3 and 4 in detail, explore the AS and A-Level assessments in detail, and to look at the support available for all themes. Firstly, we will take a look at the overview of the specification. The qualification has been running since 2015 and is based on the legacy course. We will look at the content in more detail shortly. There are 4 themes in the A-Level specification. The 2 of these that are in the AS specification are themes 1 and 2. Each theme is broken down into broad topic areas, such as the first one in theme 1, scarcity, choice and potential conflicts. The themes also build on student knowledge and understanding throughout the specification. This theme's topic areas can build on one another to allow understanding to be developed and linked where it is appropriate. The AS level is assessed by 2 externally examined papers. Theme 1 is assessed by Paper 1 and Theme 2 is assessed by Paper 2. Each exam is 90 minutes in duration. However, please note that there is only one more sitting of the AS papers. This will be in May 2020. The A-Level is assessed by 3 externally examined papers. Theme 1 and Theme 4 are assessed on Paper 1, Theme 2 and Theme 3 on Paper 2, and all 4 themes, 1, 2, 3 and 4, on Paper 3, which is synoptic. Paper 3 has a pre-release which is available in the November prior to the examination. Paper 1 and Paper 2, the A-Level, mirror one another, and each is worth 35% of the total assessment. They are each 2 hours long and have 3 sections. Section A is a data response section based on a selection of extracts and data sources. Section B and C have separate extracts, and each section has one 20-mark essay. There is no choice. All questions are compulsory. Paper 3 is worth 30% of the A-Level and has 2 sections. The pre-release for this paper directs candidates to a context which will be the focus of the exam. However, the paper can have questions relating to all 4 themes. The focus for 2019 was the labour market. In 2018, it was globalisation. And in 2017, the pre-release was market failure and government intervention. As with all A-Level specifications, this is a linear course. It has 3 examinations at the end of the 2 years of study. All papers are synoptic in nature and build upon previous concepts studied in all themes. A summary of the assessment of each A-Level paper is shown on pages 2 and 3 of the specification. We are now going to take a more detailed look at the 4 themes and the economic concepts covered in each of them. Theme 1. In Theme 1, we cover a range of economic and business concepts. These range from traditional supply and demand and market failure concepts to more business-related ones, such as enterprise and financial accounting concepts. There is a 60-40 split in terms of economics to business content. The content of the theme is identical, whether studying AS or A-level. This section introduces the basic economic and business concepts and what the study of economics entails. These are the fundamental concepts which will reoccur throughout all the themes. Students will be expected to be able to use these concepts in both economic and business contexts. Scarcity and choice should be taught from a theoretical viewpoint, but students should be able to apply these to the choices made by individuals, businesses, and governments on a daily basis. Examples of conflicts which arise from scarce resources should be developed, and students will be expected to evaluate the strategies which are used and the impact on economic agents such as consumers, producers, and governments. The objectives of firms should be considered for different sizes of business, ranging from small sole traders to large multinationals. Students should develop an appreciation that not all firms aim to maximise profits, and that there may be ethical considerations for social enterprises. The different stakeholders, as well as how these actions of different economic agents impact on them, should be examined. Section 1.2 considers the role and importance of the entrepreneur in the economy. Entrepreneurs create businesses by combining the factors of production. Students will need to understand this process and that the quality and amount of these resources can determine the success of an economy. The impact of the division of labour and of specialisation on businesses, as well as individuals, is considered before a first look at the wider economy. This section is an introduction to what these terms mean, a consideration of their impact on businesses. This section covers all aspects of the market, from basic definitions through to the forces that allocate resources, to an understanding of how to use market information to improve the prospects of the firm. This is an important section as much of what follows in this theme and themes 2, 3 and 4 rely on a sound understanding of the workings of the market. Students need more than just the theoretical background of the market. They must also be able to apply it to real-life situations. They may be required to use suitably labelled diagrams to show the impact of changing market conditions. Firms need finance for a number of different reasons: to cover start-up costs, to ensure adequate cash to operate, the day-to-day costs, as well as to invest in expanding the business. Although firms need to borrow for capital investment and working capital, borrowing can be both costly and risky. Students will develop an understanding of the role of banks in the economy and the importance of liability. Starting a new business involves numerous costs. Some of these will be large one-off payments for things like premises and equipment, and they can be considerable. The business may also need finance to keep paying costs such as wages and raw materials until enough income comes in from its sales. If all goes well, the business will be successful and make a profit. However, this does not mean that the business will have enough cash on a day-to-day basis to pay its bills. It may need additional finance to provide sufficient working capital to cope with any cash flow problems. There may come a time when the business will want to expand. This may involve extra finance to pay for it. Firms must decide between different types of credit and finance and be aware of the challenge of obtaining credit. Theme 1 has already explored the workings of the market in a mostly theoretical manner. For example, that the free market allocates resources in response to consumer demand and that free markets work efficiently. This section introduces the idea that markets often do not produce the required results and actually create problems that need to be addressed. The first topic covers what these problems are and how markets fail. In order to correct these market failures, some form of government intervention is needed. The second topic considers how governments can and do intervene. Government intervention does not always solve the problems and can make them worse or create problems elsewhere. This is the concept of market failure. This section should refer to real-life examples wherever possible. The final section of Theme 1 introduces students to financial techniques for measuring the way a business is performing. A business needs to be able to measure its performance and know when to take remedial action. Students will be expected to know how to make a range of calculations, apply them and interpret them. They will need to know what the results show and be able to make comparisons and draw conclusions. Theme 2. Theme 2 covers more traditional economic concepts, such as macroeconomic policies and elasticities. It also brings in wider concepts, such as life in a global economy and business growth. As with Theme 1, the content of this theme is the same whether studying for AS or A-Level Economics B. This section focuses on the motivations for the growth of firms and the methods firms may use to achieve growth. The objectives of firms, including profit maximisation, are explored. In addition, how to increase brand awareness, market share, and market power are looked at. Research and development is examined in the context of establishing and maintaining competitive advantage. The increasing importance of buying and selling online is explored, and the section ends with a look at the reasons why small firms continue to thrive despite the advantages enjoyed by large firms. The focus of section 2.2 is on the relationship between the firm and the consumer. Activities that firms engage in to maximise demand for goods and services, as well as the factors which impact on the consumer's willingness and ability to purchase those goods and services, are explored. Pricing strategies are considered, as is the idea of non-price competition. The concept of price elasticity of demand is used to help students understand and analyse the relationship between price level, demand, and sales revenue. The concept of income elasticity of demand is used to help students understand and analyse the relationship between income level, demand, and sales revenue. Much of this section builds upon the work on demand curves covered in Theme 1. It may be useful to remind students of the basics before starting this section. Diagrams should be used to help explain the effects of the variables discussed. The section focuses on the ways in which firms can reduce their costs in order to become more competitive. Productivity is examined and the strategies and procedures available to firms to improve productivity are explored. The impact of relative efficiency on sales revenue and costs is also considered. Globalization is the ongoing integration of countries on a political, economic and social level. Although it is not new, developments over recent decades have seen a huge increase in globalization, leading to increasing trade and rising prosperity across the globe, with the growing power of transnational corporations producing and selling in developing economies and emerging markets. China and India, for example, have become significant economic powers, and other countries are growing rapidly. Allied with rapid technological change and improved transport and communications, the global economy has seen a major structural change which is continuing to affect individuals, firms, and economies. Section 2.5 extends 2.4 to look at the macroeconomic environment within which firms operate. Established macroeconomic concepts are defined and developed to encourage students to understand that firms do not operate in isolation from broader national and international economic forces and trends. A government's economic policy choices will be determined by its own short and long-term political interests. The aim of this section is to explore the reasoning behind policy decisions and the likely conflicts between policy objectives. 4 possible macroeconomic objectives for government: steady and sustainable economic growth, a low level of unemployment, a low and stable rate of inflation, and a favourable balance of payments position. The emphasis the government places on each of these areas will largely determine its fiscal and monetary policy. It is possible to take a look at AS exam papers from the 2019 series along with previous years on the website. An example is also included in the downloadable material. To get a better idea of how questions are structured, take a look at the example of AS Paper 2 from 2019. You will see that there are a series of extracts at the start of Section A, followed by the questions relating to the extracts. This is repeated in Section B and again Section C. The questions in the first 2 sections each comprise a 2-mark and 2 4-mark points-based questions, then an 8 and a 12-mark levels-based question. Section C has only 1 question, worth 20 marks. Paper 1 and Paper 2 are structured in the same way each exam series. Theme 3. In Theme 3, students develop their understanding of the concepts introduced in Theme 2 and explore the international economic environment. Students develop their understanding of the meaning of globalization. They then go on to explore ways in which firms expand into new markets and move to new locations for production, alongside looking at the issues relating to global trade and growth, and the trade policies that shape the global economy. Multinational corporations figure significantly in this theme, along with the study of global labour markets, poverty, inequality, and income distribution. Students will apply supply and demand analysis to the labour market as they see how wages are determined and look at other influences on the rewards of labour. This section focuses on the connection between trade and growth and the various factors that have contributed to it, as well as the consequences arising from it. It focuses on trading blocks and the positive and negative aspects that may arise from membership. Trade policy, negotiations, and the impact of exchange rate changes are also key focuses in the first section of Theme 3. This topic area explores businesses that want to trade overseas and the reasons for wanting to do so. Some may be forced to seek out new markets because of problems in existing domestic markets. Others will be tempted by the possibilities for growth and profit that new trading areas offer. Often, it will be a mix of reasons. Students will need to understand the reasons why this happens and why the reasons will vary for different businesses. This topic also covers the issues of which country to choose, either from a potential market in which to sell a product or service, or as a location for production. Students will not be expected to have in-depth knowledge of potential markets and locations, but rather an appreciation of the various influencing factors involved, and how they will differ in importance for different businesses. Section 3.3 shows how firms have adapted marketing strategies in response to global demand. As businesses expand and international sales take place, a firm has to consider the needs of both domestic and international customers. For most businesses, there is no such thing as a global market. Global sales are made up from many national markets. Despite modern technology and communications and the ongoing process of globalization, there can still be considerable differences between these markets. Global businesses need to be able to recognize these differences and adapt their marketing strategies accordingly if they are to survive and prosper. Some businesses may need to do little in the way of adaptation, while others will go to great lengths to adapt each aspect of their marketing strategy to suit the requirements of each individual market. Students will need to recognize the different approaches that businesses will use and their advantages and disadvantages. There are many excellent case studies and examples that will help to do this, such as the growth of Coca-Cola and McDonald's in India. This section also looks at the rise of global niche markets and then at some of the cultural and social factors that businesses must take into account if they are to be successful and avoid costly marketing errors. Multinational corporations, or MNCs, are businesses that operate or have assets in more than one economy or country. They can be very large organisations with a turnover exceeding the GDP of even a small country. Inevitably, this gives them great power and influence. Many MNCs have been accused of abusing their position and have attracted great criticism of their actions. On the other hand, MNCs are often welcomed in overseas countries as they can bring many benefits to a range of stakeholders and economic agents, including the people, the government, other businesses, and the economy as a whole. It is very likely that some of the biggest MNCs of the future will be Chinese or Indian and that they will have an increasing impact on the global economy. Students will need to be able to assess the relative benefits and drawbacks that MNCs bring to an economy and to understand the controversies that can surround them. It is important that they understand both sides of the argument and present a balanced answer with examples. Students will also be required to consider whether the activities of MNCs should be controlled and to what extent such attempts will be successful. It is also important to realise that MNCs operate in all types of economy and that most foreign direct investment still goes to developed economies. As with other themes, examples and case studies should be used to illustrate the various topics in this section. The global labour market encompasses all types of labour that is available to work on a global basis. Like the domestic labour market, it is made up of all those who supply labour and those who demand it. In recent decades, it has both increased and changed dramatically. As developing economies have industrialised and started to compete in world markets, the global labour market has grown. As more than 1 billion people entered the labour force, a massive movement from the land to the city has accelerated the growth of productivity and per capita GDP in China and other traditionally rural nations, bringing hundreds of millions of people out of poverty. Developed economies have invested in labour-saving technologies and use global sources of low-cost labour in order to increase efficiency and competitiveness. This section explores how and why the global labour force has grown, how its composition has changed, and the factors that have influenced this change. It also examines the workings of the labour market and how market imperfections, such as unions, professional bodies, and minimum wage legislation, have an effect on labour, wage rates, and economies. Section 3.6 examines inequality and poverty and covers what these terms mean, how they are measured, and how and why governments attempt to deal with them. Inequality and poverty are features of every economy and the global economy as a whole. Although they are linked, they are not the same thing. In many economies, poverty is being reduced, but at the same time, inequality is increasing. Inequality itself is not necessarily a negative phenomenon. Too much can mean hardship for many and restrict growth, but too little may mean excessive government intervention and limit innovation. Poverty is closely linked to economic growth in that it can restrict economic development. However, economic growth is a means of reducing poverty. For example, there has been a significant reduction in poverty in recent decades as countries such as China and India have developed in economic terms. But for many, poverty and absolute poverty remain. Students need to be familiar with these concepts and how they affect individuals, businesses, and the economy as a whole. They should understand how inequality and poverty are measured and be able to interpret the results and trends over time. They should be aware of how these problems have been tackled and be able to evaluate their effectiveness. Theme 4. Theme 4 draws on concepts covered in Theme 1 in terms of market failure and government intervention. It also contains a section on risk and the financial sector, which includes looking at reasons for the 2008 global financial crisis. As with Theme 3, only A-level students need to study this theme. It starts by considering degrees of competition within markets and then encourages students to apply their understanding to how governments may improve the functioning of markets and the economy. The focus on regulation opens up the range of measures that can be used to prevent firms from using their market power in ways that are detrimental to the interests of society as a whole. In-depth coverage of macroeconomic policy and the role of the financial markets allows students to explore the significant problems that have developed in recent years without needing technical understanding of the financial system. This section covers market structures, and its focus is on market power and the nature of competition in a range of situations. The content builds on earlier work on competition, marketing, pricing strategies, cost of production, innovation, and productivity. Revision of relevant topics will be important in helping students to progress towards a more sophisticated analysis of the issues involved. Productive and allocative efficiency are introduced, and these topics encourage a synoptic approach. Overall, the objective should be to draw together students' understanding and prior knowledge, developing awareness of the links and relationships between concepts, events, and policies. Taken together with the additional content, this section gives the student powerful tools of application, analysis, and evaluation. A wide range of case studies and examples will be required to illustrate the terminology employed. Markets and businesses vary hugely in terms of the strength and nature of the competition that prevails. The diagrams that are associated with the theory of the firm are not required, but students should develop a thorough understanding of the range of real-world scenarios that can occur and the ways in which they can be categorized. Markets are usually seen as providing an efficient way of allocating resources. Competition between providers ensures that businesses will strive to keep costs and prices down. The price mechanism ensures that businesses will produce the kinds of products that customers are seeking. The whole process will create an allocation of resources that gives society the best deal that can be obtained with the available resources. However, vested interest may intervene and create the conditions for market failure. Businesses find competition difficult to live with. They are constantly struggling to hold on to their customers and stop them from choosing other firms' products. But to the extent that they successfully reduce the power of the competition, they may be charging the customer more than the true cost of production. This makes many people worse off than they need to be. The key factor is power in the marketplace. Businesses will try to achieve it, but in doing so, they may lose the efficiency which can improve standards of living. Business regulation seeks to prevent market failure in ways that protect the interests of both consumers and employees. Students are not expected to learn the detail in each major piece of legislation, but they do need to know why regulation is important, how it works, and what disadvantages it may have. Throughout, students should be examining case study material that provides good examples. Investigating current issues is particularly helpful, especially when students can follow the progress of a particular case which is concluded during their course. Before starting this section, students should revise relevant earlier work, in particular business and stakeholder objectives, Theme 1.1, Markets and the Price Mechanism, Theme 1.4, Market Failure, Theme 1.5, Business Growth, Theme 2.1, and Marketing and Elasticities, Theme 2.2. They must also keep in mind the content of the previous section, Theme 4.1. Market failure was introduced in section 1.5 in Theme 1. Students should therefore revise this section carefully before going on to explore market failure in greater depth. Within society, freely functioning markets can fail to deliver an efficient allocation of resources. Some goods and services may not be produced at all. Others may be produced but not in the quantity that would provide the optimum outcome for society. Section 4.2 explored the way in which lack of competition may lead to smaller quantities supplied at higher prices. Free markets may also provide products that have detrimental effects on the economy and society. Markets may fail to clear. This means that there may be excess supply or excess demand that persists for long periods. There may be asymmetric information. Either the buyer or the seller may know more about the product and its market than the other. The deal will be much more favourable for the one who knows more than it is for the other. This section looks at the ways in which a variety of markets may fail and how the allocation of resources may change to a mix that produces optimum benefits to society. Students should have a good understanding of positive and negative externalities and the impact that these may have on individuals and society as a whole. They should be aware of the possibility of comparing costs and benefits where there are alternative possibilities. But they do not need to study cost-benefit analysis in detail. They should understand private, external, and social costs and benefits, but they are not expected to use the diagrams for marginal social costs and benefits. In examining the impact of market failure in the economy and society, the environment, public and merit goods, labour market issues, and welfare issues should be explored. However, there may be other areas in which markets are seen to be failing, and students' understanding of the market failure and externalities should be sufficient for them to be able to apply it in unfamiliar contexts. Previous work on these topics includes sections 2.5 and 2.6 on the economic cycle and macroeconomic policy within Theme 2. This section requires increased depth of knowledge together with an ability to analyse and evaluate the likely effects of specific policies. Revision is required along with the more holistic view that is facilitated by wide-ranging subject knowledge. This topic requires students to learn the underpinning theories that will enable them to produce a more systematic analysis of events. In particular, the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model will allow students to achieve a stronger understanding of how the variables change over time and in relation to the economic cycle. They will learn how some situations require a combination of policies that can address potential policy conflicts. It's quite possible that students will be studying the UK economy at a time when inflation is so low that it never becomes a problem. However, we cannot be sure about this, so inflation must be included in the content of this section, even if only because a low inflation could indicate some success in this policy area. This section provides students with an overview of the events surrounding the global financial crisis, as well as the role of the financial sector and central banks. The focus should be on the key aspects which can be applied to appropriate contexts. Students should revise the role of the banking system introduced in section 1.3.3 within theme 1. Like before, it is possible to take a look at A-level exam papers from the 2019 series, along with previous years, on the website. An example is also included in the downloadable material. To get a better look of how questions are structured, take a look at the example of A-level Paper 1 and A-level Paper 3 from 2019. The pre-release from Paper 3 has also been included. On Paper 1, you will see that there are a series of extracts at the start of each section, followed by the questions relating to the extract. There are a series of points-based and levels-based questions in Section A, ramping up from 4 marks to 6, then 8, then 10, and finally 12 marks. Sections B and C each have only one question, both worth 20 marks. Paper 2 is structured in the same way as this, as are all A-level papers 1 and 2 each exam series. Paper 3 has 2 sections, each worth 50 marks. Again, there are a series of extracts followed by the questions. Each section has an 8, 10, 12 and a 20-mark question. This format is the same every exam series. We will now look at how the papers are assessed at both AS and A-level. There is a clear, consistent approach to questions on each paper as well as their assessment. This slide summarises the weightings of each assessment objective in Economics B A-level. Unlike the legacy specification, there is a range for each objective, which enables flexibility of skills assessment between the papers. There is greater weighting given to analysis and evaluation in the A-level, but it is important to note that at least 22% of each paper will also be assessed according to application of knowledge of various economic contexts. AO1 is knowledge and understanding. Knowledge is to simply recall. It may require a definition or a list. Understanding is to be able to comprehend an economic or business concept or theory. The specification was developed to ensure that students develop a holistic understanding of economics and business in a range of contexts. This, together with the other qualifications, aims and objectives, means that senior examiners have been keen to write exam papers on real economies and businesses across a range of industries and markets. It is therefore only right that use of evidence from the extracts provided in the papers, as well as students' own relevant knowledge, should form a key component, if not foundation, for assessment. This is the basis for AO2. Examples given by the student must be directly connected to the context or issues set out in the question. AO3, analyse, requires causes or consequences to be given related to the point or points made regarding an economic decision. These could be positive or negative aspects, depending on the question. It's important that they follow a chain of reasoning, linking the elements to explain why and or how the points of the argument connect, not just a list of separate factors. Diagrammatic analysis relates to explaining possible causes and consequences using, for example, supply and demand diagrams. Points of analysis could be linked using words such as therefore, thus, and so, because, and if, for example. Stronger candidates are likely to use words such as might and could to show understanding of the extent to which a situation may occur. AO4 evaluation may be demonstrated in a variety of ways: identifying conditions necessary for a situation, judging the probability of a situation occurring, judging the significance of a situation, making a distinction between short and long-run outcomes, identifying winners and losers, assessing risks, identifying the significance of missing or additional information. It's important to note that, as with AO3 Analyse, a chain to link the factors should be presented in order to fully demonstrate evaluative points. A basic "it depends on the short or long run" without any explanation of why is unlikely to reach the top level. It is a requirement for quantitative skills to be assessed on Economics B papers. This assessment will be covered by the content of the themes and can take the form of standalone questions or extended responses. The former will typically be calculate or illustrate questions. The latter are where students use quantitative skills in order to support their reasoning. Again, this may be a calculation or a diagram, but it may also be by using the data from the extract. Further detail can be seen in Appendix 3 of the specification on page 55. Short answer or points-based questions appear in Section A of AS Level Papers 1 and 2, or Sections A and B of the A-Level papers. They can be 2 marks in AS papers only, 4 marks, or in A-Level papers only, 6 marks. There are no points-based questions on A-Level paper 3. These types of questions are marked according to the assessment objectives, as shown on this slide. We are looking for knowledge, application, and analysis for these types of questions, and individual marks are awarded for specific points made. The questions worth 8 marks and above are marked using a levels-based mark scheme. This looks holistically at a response in order to assign a level and then a mark within that level. This means that better contextualized answers with a more detailed evaluation will be rewarded highly, whereas weak evaluation with little or no context will be placed in a lower level and with a lower mark. For A-Level Papers 1 and 2, there are points-based questions with the command words explain, illustrate, or calculate, which are worth 4 marks, and a 6-mark analyse question. In addition, there are levels-based questions requiring a 2-sided argument in the form of 8 marks discuss, 10 and 12-mark assess, and 20-mark evaluate questions. A-Level Paper 3 only has levels-based questions, each requiring a 2-sided answer, meaning they contain Assessment Objective 4, Evaluation. The paper has 2 sections, each with 1 8-mark discuss, 1 10-mark assess, 1 12-mark assess, and 1 20-mark evaluate question. Regardless of whether it is an AS or any of the A-Level papers, 8-mark questions with the command word discuss require 1 or more applied points on each side of the argument. No conclusion or recommendation is needed. This is asking for more depth in terms of the logical chains of reasoning to show analysis and evaluation. The conclusion is required for 10 and 12-mark questions with the command word assess. There are no 10-mark assess questions on the AS papers. The highest mark question on all the papers has the command word evaluate and is worth 20 marks. There is one of these questions on each AS paper and 2 on each A-level paper. To obtain marks in the top level, it does require a detailed evaluation of the key economic decisions and implications. Critical judgments and conclusions are also required. Pearson Edexcel prides itself on the support it gives to teachers and candidates. The following slides show some of the support available to aid the delivery of the Economics B course. Numerous materials and information is available on the Pearson Edexcel website. For example, all of the materials shown are available to download from the Economics B pages of the website. To find this page, go to the site, go to Qualifications, A-Levels, then Economics B. From the Specification tab, you can download the specification and link to the sample assessment materials. There is also summary information about the reforms and introduction to the course. Scroll down to find contact information for Colin Leith, who is the subject advisor, links to our subject community and the subject page. The Course Materials tab has all the documents, again the specification, sample assessment materials and support materials available. It also has question papers, mark schemes and principal examiner reports from previous exam series, as well as the training content from previous events. Teaching support gives you an overview of the support available. For example, mapping documents, a course planner and a scheme of work can be accessed through the Planning and Delivery link. There are a range of downloadable resources available for each theme. Pearson Edexcel also allows students to download their examination papers after results day free of charge. There are also specifically written student books for each theme, plus revision guides, AS and A-level, provided by Anform, which cover the whole of the course. Colin Leith is your dedicated subject advisor. He is available to contact with queries through a variety of ways. It's a good idea to sign up to the e-updates for the latest news. The best way to improve the delivery of the course is to become an examiner. This will give you an invaluable insight into the application of the mark schemes and help you raise attainment of your own students. Many thanks for your time and attention during this event.